Hello and welcome back to the channel with me, the Orienteering Kid, where today we're in Macclesfield for the first round of Category B in TORUS Season 3. Yes, we are here to look at the first event in the B category of this third season of TORUS, a month-long series with 8 events on Tuesdays and Thursdays, planned by course setters from all over the world. However, today's video is going to be a lot different to the previous ones because I actually planned today's event, with Tom Dobra advising. For those of you that took part in Category A of this first event, you would have known that Tom also planned that event, so he had a fun day monitoring both the A and B categories. And yeah, I just thought that since I already know what's going to happen with this event, I will instead talk you through some of the processes that I went through making this event and putting it all together. So let's go back right to the start, to the first thing I did, which to start with was getting a location and gathering some ideas for stations. Now, I already knew for my first event planning that I wanted to do it within the place that I first learned to orienteer, which is the school that I currently attend, the Fallibroome Academy, and so I got hold of the maps and started thinking about the site and where I could plan some stations. And this is where the first bit of software that I used for this event comes in, a piece of software called Tom. Now, Tom, or Tempo Maker as that stands for, is one of the 3 different softwares that I'm aware of that you can use to create tempo courses, and it was actually one of the 2 that I used, but I thought to start with this was definitely a good visual. But I will be linking all the things I have used in the description of this video so you can have a go at using them yourself. But the first thing that I did, as I did say before, was load up the map and have a play around with some of the stations. So I did have 8 different stations in mind here, and this was just a first thought. I was very ready to be adapting to different things, and you can see as we go through the clusters the different types of things I was coming up with. You'll be recognising some of these stations already as similar to ones I had if you did compete in this event. And yeah, this was some of my first designs, just getting an idea. You will see that the map does look a lot different. This was because our map was on the old spec and I'd had to do a lot of map updating, so you will see eventually it does change the other spec, but I won't bore you with that because that is quite complicated. You can also see things like this. I did want to try and do a long range one, stood in the building looking out over this field. However, I then realised this was going to be very tough for a B course, and so kind of scrapped that idea. So yeah, this software was quite a nice way to try and get a visual idea of the sort of stations that I could use. I didn't use all of them, as you can see, only some of these actually made the final cut. But once I did that, it was then to go into the place and take some photos with some kites in them to have a look and see what sort of stations we could actually make in the area. And so after going in and taking some photos, this is what we came back with. So we ended up taking photos for 10 different stations, and you will recognise some of these if you did take part in the event again. But we had some different scenarios, so you can see there the Delta kite is underneath the canopy. In the next photo it does move to the tree. So we did take a couple of different views of each station, but most of it stayed largely the same. Again, the kite there at the bottom of the stairs, but it did also move to the top of the stairs in the middle, although it's very hard to tell. And I also think in the competition it was on the bush instead. And yeah, we just went through some of them, and you can also see these sort of long range ones which we did have a look at, but I am glad that we didn't put these in the B course, because I think especially some of these kites around here right at the back, it's very hard to tell exactly where they are. They may have been fine for an A, but I do think it was quite difficult for a B. And yeah, those are the sort of photos that we came back with. You can also see we had to take a few times, that kite fell over, etc. That's the fun of using real kites rather than superimposed kites. But once I had that, we then came to the final photos, and I had to pick one from each station which I thought was the best, and we came to these. So they are in a different order. So then we had this one which I thought was good, especially with the control on the bush. That bush wasn't on the map, so I did have to add that afterwards, but I thought that was quite a nice feature to have a control on. And a few things with the walls sticking out and the different shapes of the walls with the pillar and the other corner of the building that we can't see. I thought this was a great angle to be using, especially with the obscured view as well. It meant that even if it was in real life, you wouldn't have been able to see anything extra. And then in this one, I thought this was again a good one using the trees. You may have thought that this tree was part of the patch, however it is behind the fence, and there is also a tree hiding out. You can just see it on the right hand side of the photo which Foxtrot is between, so I do think that was quite nice with a few different features in there to work with. Also, this one is a long range one. It was definitely the most long range of the stations, I think, but with Alpha and Foxtrot very close to us, it was clear where they were and it worked round. At the moment it is clear that these are lampposts and trees, but you will see later on that that does get hard hard and we had to make a couple of adjustments with this station, but that one was overall fine. And then with this one, I thought it was quite nice having the hedge on the right hand side and the 2 trees in front of us, and also all these buildings with the corners on the left hand side. When I was making this, I thought this could easily be the final station with some very interesting zeros, and I think it was in the end, so that one was quite nice. This one I thought was quite a nice wide one with the one just back there. We had all the fences and the walls, echo potentially on a tree stump was quite nice, but there were quite a lot of linear features to help place you, so I thought that was quite a nice station. This one, if we do go back to this photo here, you can see the Bravo kites in the wall, and when we came to take the photo for this station, we just left it there. So the kite's in exactly the same place, and I thought it was quite nicely used in both the stations. There are a few trees here to work with, there's obviously the lamppost as well, and the corners of buildings. I quite like that one as a long range with Delta. And then this one, when we took it, I immediately thought this is going to be the simplest of stations. I did actually want quite a simple station to bring people in on. So you will remember that this one is station 1, because there is quite literally 2 trees, 2 benches, controls between 2 trees, and there's a building on the left hand side, and that is all you really needed for this station. So I thought when we took that, that was a really nice starting one. And then finally we had this one, which is a lot different to the others, but I did want a different one to throw in, and there are quite a few fences, but I think it is clear the shape of them, with Charlie on this corner, and you can see the small fence coming across the paved area with Delta at the junction and Foxtrot on this corner here. So yeah, those were the 8 stations we went with, and once we had those photos, I then put them back into a new file in Tom and tried to come up with some stations. So this is what I ended up with for the 10 clusters, as I took 10 photos. And looking here, you can see our first designs of the station. They are in a different order, but they are in the order that we took the photos, and you can see the different designs. So really it was just throwing them into Tom and coming up with some stations. Most of them stayed largely the same to what I came up with in the end, but you can see, for example, this one, if we go back to the photo of this station, you can see there is a control on the front side of this thicket, but if you look at the Tom file with the old map in it, you can see there isn't actually a thicket on this area at all. So I had to just kind of place the kite there and say there was a thicket, and we did have to do a lot of map updates, which again you will see later on. But really, once I'd put all the clusters into Tom and used it so I could visually see all the stations that I wanted, I then moved on to the next piece of software that I used to actually create the files, which is TC Template. Now TC Template is the Trailer timed control map cards generator, which was built by Tom Dobra, and it utilises the software Purple Pen to create the map cards for the tasks for you. Now I know that the Tom software does do this as well, but because of the old map and I was creating a new map using OCAD, Purple Pen works very well with OCAD, I thought it'd be a good idea to move across to this, and this is very simple to use. Now it does explain here in 10 easy steps how to start creating the map cards, but I will talk through the processes. The first thing that I had to do was create a event in Purple Pen, and this is the event that I ended up with. So you can see the map file already is a lot different to the previous one, as we've upgraded to the Fallibroome 2019 spec, but you can see here all the controls that I used in the event. So what you have to do to start creating your event is create a course using course add course, and then you name your course as the station. So I've used 8, so I'm going to go 9.1, and you have to change it to a score course, and once you press OK, you have your new course, and you then just place the control where you want it to be. So the task for me for this one might be on this tree here. You don't have to change the control number, but sometimes I do like changing it to the task number, so for this case it would be 91. And then you set your control description, so this one is going to be tree, and I'm going to put it on the south side of that tree, not south edge, south side. And then the last important thing to do here is take the number 1 and move it miles away, because otherwise it will appear on the map cards at the end. So once you're very happy that that is centered on the tree, you then move on to the next task, and you create one course for every task you are going to set. So you can see here at the top we have 3.1 for station 3, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, 3.5. So at this point I had worked out the order of the stations that I was going to put in, which is why they are all numbered. Now once you've done this for all your tasks, you then have to go and set the print area by set print area for all courses, and check that it does cover all the tasks at a big enough range as well. Remember that the circle's going to be at the centre, but you are going to see map all the way around it. So I was happy that that area had all the controls in it. And then once we've done that, we need to create some PDFs. So what we do is we go to File, Create PDFs, Courses, and you make sure that all the courses are ticked, and you crop to a single page. However, for exporting for TC Template, you want to change colour mode to RGB RGB, and you want to change the files to one PDF for all courses. That just makes sure that you get one PDF, not a whole load, one for each course. And then the PDF you get once you've done that is like this, with one circle on each map. The number is miles away, and you just keep going through and you can just see there's just the one circle. So that does seem to have worked, with the circle moving for every task. And it is a very similar process to create the PDFs for the control descriptions, as we go to File, Create PDFs, and then Descriptions. And in this one we need to make sure that the margins are set to A4 rather than letter, and when we print copies we want one page for each course, not one copy of each course. Scroll down, make sure the line size is 6 centimeters, and we create the PDF. And once you've done that, this is the PDF that you get. So you can see there is one whole page with the same control description for the first task, then for the next task, and so on and so forth. So that is pretty simple for exporting, and once you've done that, you can then go to the TC template website and you can upload the maps PDF, which for here I had named Fallibroome because that was the area that I was doing it, and then the descriptions PDF, which is this one here. And then also you have to upload the purple pen file, and once you've uploaded all three of those, you then get this grid where you put in the information for each station. So for example, you tick the zeros box because there is going to be zeros for each station, and there's 6 kites in each station. You can have the map shape as circle or square, but I do like it as circle with a 6 centimeter diameter. The scale here is a weird number, however we did have some issues with the scaling, so we had to do some sums to work out what scale would actually be 1 to 3000, but you can just put the scale of your map in as 1 to 3000 or 1 to 4000, and we have a contour interval of 5 meters for me. So you can set all stations, and now the only thing left to set is the heading of each station, and that is the station direction that you are looking in. And this is the other reason I used Tom to start putting the stations together, because instead of working out your heading manually, you can go into Tom, and for each station you can see that there is a azimuth, which I'm guessing is check for heading, and all you have to do is for each station you have to put that number into TC template. Now the stations for me here were in a different order as the order we took the photos rather than the order that they were used in the event, so the numbers are in a different order. But once you've filled in the heading, you can then change the template to online tempo, and you can just generate the map cards, to which it downloads a zip file with all your map cards in, and then you can just upload them to the tempo simulator. Now all the files are downloaded with the correct file names as well. There are specific file names that you should be using when uploading your photos to the simulator, so it recognises them, and so if you've used the numbers for each station you don't need to change any of the files, you just upload them straight away. And so looking at what we've got to upload, what you can see in this folder which has all the files uploaded are the map files, and this is what TC template exports with the cover photo for each map, and then you get each individual map. I know my camera's not in a good place for the control descriptions, but they are there, and so all those map cards done, and you don't need to do anything else with them. The other things we have to sort out then are the photos that we looked at previously and the solution maps as well. Now the photos are quite simple. You can see there are 2 of each photo there, and that is because you have a huge file as the base photo and then a zoom file. Now looking at the dimensions, this huge file can only be 1520 pixels by 400, and that 400 is the important bit because your photos cannot be more than 400 pixels high. So what you have to do is, if we look at the photo for station 1 for example, you will see here that it's quite a tall photo and it's not very long, it's almost square, and you can see the tops of the trees and the posts at the back, but for the event you don't necessarily need to be able to see all of that. So in order to get it down to 400 pixels in height, you have to crop the top and bottom, and this is the resulting photo you get. So you can see the top of the trees has been missed off, but you can still tell where they are. You can just about see there's some paved area here, and all the clues are there to help you solve the task. It's just in a format that you are allowed to upload, and so you did that for all the tasks. And you can also do zoom photos by just throwing these photos into Photoshop and exporting them at 200%, and you upload them as 2 separate files with H at the end of the first one and Z at the end of the second one. So the second one, being the bigger file, is going to be used as a zoom file. And so those are the photos taken care of. You can also upload a logo if you want to. And then finally it was to work on the solutions, and this was definitely the bit that took the most work, and this involved loading the map in OCAD. Now you don't have to use OCAD, it's just my map file was in here, and what I did is, if we scroll down to the right hand side, is I created a symbol set for the solutions with the controls, a viewing angle, and also zeros with the X's, and I rotated the symbols as if you were looking from this direction. So you can see if you were to turn your head on the video, you would be able to see that all these symbols are orientated correctly for the viewing angle, and I had a separate OCAD file for every solution map. However, if you do zoom in, you can see that it does get a bit blurry around the the edges, and this is only a problem in OCAD. So what I did to solve this was I opened the map file in purple pen, and you can actually see here that looking at it, it's a lot smoother, it's less pixelated, and so this was going to be a much better image to use as the solutions. And so I just screenshotted this area and rotated it in Photoshop, and as a result you get this sort of photo. So you can see this is orientated in the same direction that you were looking in for the first station, and all the controls are nicely positioned there. And I did this for all the stations, screenshotting the photo in purple pen and rotating it in Photoshop. And really, once I've done that, that is all I really needed to do for the event. So what I did was I put all the photos together with all the correct names, and then throw it all into a zip file, and it's all here. And then all you have to do is upload this zip file as part of the form that you do fill in when you create an event. Now unfortunately I am going to be unable to show you that form, because now the event's happened, the organisation part of that has been removed from my page, so I am no longer able to show you exactly the form that you do fill in. But it is very simple, you just follow it through, everything's explained, and you put in all the information that you can see here, like the zero tolerance, the amount of stations, you put in all the letters, and it creates the event for you. And you can event test, do it as many times as you like, and that is all you really have to do to plan the event. So now what I will do is talk through all the stations and show you my sort of thought processes for all of them. Now with station 1, this was quite a simple photo in my opinion. As we've said before, it was 2 trees, 2 benches, deltas between the 2 trees, and alphas on the building, and all I wanted to do here was have a nice station to bring you into the event and help you warm up a bit. So I don't think there were too many problems here. We obviously had Echo on the right hand tree, Bravo on the front black cross, we had Charlie at the back. Now originally you can see I put Delta, that's because we did used to have Delta as the third task between the 2 trees, but I thought I would make it even simpler and just keep it on the 4 features. So we went to Charlie. The 0 I thought was very clear on the wrong corner of the building, and then Foxtrot on the picnic bench at the front. So I thought it was quite an easy station to bring us in on, and I didn't ramp up the difficulty too much I think going into station 2, as really there's only one place on the map we could be, which is in the channel that the tree is that we want in this circle, and we just worked our way through with Delta on the tree at the back. I can appreciate that the tree is not necessarily the clearest, but it is definitely in the middle of the light green area. And then this 0 I thought was quite interesting, and quite a few put Charlie for this one actually, but I wanted an interesting 0 to keep you on your toes as we come into station 2. But it's going to be right under the canopy. You can't actually see the canopy there, but there is definitely a shadow, and it's to the left hand side of the tree, whereas Charlie's to the right hand side of the tree. So I thought that wasn't too bad as a 0. Out to the rough open land within the wall with Foxtrot, and then between the 2 trees over by Echo, and then out by the paved area of Alpha. So again, I didn't think that station was too bad. I thought it was quite a nice transition from station 1 being very easy into maybe station 3, which had some quite interesting 0s. And really this first one was a parallel error, but it was quite a clear parallel error in my opinion if you were concentrating, because the obvious answer to me here was Foxtrot. A few did go with Delta actually, but if you look at the Foxtrot kite, it is on a sort of right angled fence which does go to the right like the one does on the map. However, you can see a load of stairs south of that fence, and that is what you can see the top of here, and it goes down. So that one was a 0 as it's all the way back there at the bottom of that green building right at the back of the photo. So I thought that was quite an interesting one to throw in as the first task in station 3 to see if you had woken up yet. And then we came forward to the wall, and I thought this one was quite clear. It's the wall right in front of us as we stood between the 2 buildings with the pillar, and Echo is clearly on a wall. I wasn't surprised that a fair few did go with Foxtrot as it's a kite on the right of the photo right in front of us, but Foxtrot is just to the right hand side of Echo. So that one did go to Echo, and I think people would have realised their mistake from the first task going into the second task, and that's why I also like this as a second task, because you're only really confused for the first task. If you got the first task wrong, you definitely had the chance to get the rest of the tasks right. We then move to the corner of the wall, and I think it's clear that the wall continues the other side of this pillar, and there is the northeast inside corner of that wall there. So I thought that one was clear, and I also thought this one was clear, and I was surprised quite a few did go with Delta. I think it's potentially reading the centre of the circle wrong without reading the control description though, as we do want a thicket and we want the south side of this thicket. Now originally I did have this as southwestern side, however I was told to change it to south, and I can agree it is really on the most southern point of the bush as you move an east-western line towards the bush. So Charlie is definitely on the southern side of that bush. I can see why again quite a lot would put Delta though, as if you don't read the centre of the circle properly you may think Delta's there. And then there was another interesting 0 to finish off this station, being on the northeastern outside corner of a building, and Alpha is definitely definitely on the northeastern outside corner of the building, and Alpha was the decoy here. But if you look at where it is in relation to the pillar, Alpha is going to be on the corner here opposite the wall of Foxtrot, and the corner we want is going to be round the corner of this building. So it's definitely a 0, and well done if you did manage to spot that. I thought that was definitely a more interesting station 3, and it did get a bit harder than the previous 2. Station 4 then was again quite an interesting one. It was different to station 3 as we went for a more long range one like station 2, which I did like mixing up. And really here, because I thought it was a harder station in terms of the photo, I thought I'd make the first task really easy. And we have the wall right in front of us, and we want the northern end, and that does put us with Alpha. There isn't really much else to say about that, it's just there. You can also see this spike of open land coming in by Foxtrot as this one here, so I thought that was good. But I also put Alpha as the first task to try and distract you for the second task, as we want a tree on its own in the middle of some forest walk, or it's sort of some vegetation thickety thing actually back there. And looking at it, Echo is really on a tree back there on the northern side of that tree. However, it's part of this open land bit with a lamppost as well in this circle here. So the tree we actually want is back there. You can just see it coming out, and that one was definitely a 0. I think quite a lot did manage to notice that, but a fair few did also go with Echo. That was the obvious decoy. So yeah, that was definitely the hardest task in this station. But then we came back to a bit more familiar ground, and we wanted the corner of the building, and it's the first corner we come to from the wall, and we go through, and that is where Bravo is. I think it's clear that the cane does come down here rather than it being on the wall behind it. However, the most interesting task here was this one. It's the one that we had a bit of a problem with, because when I placed the kite, it was going to be on the south side of the lamppost, and you can just see a lamppost there if you look carefully enough. However, because of the building at the background, it could definitely blend in, and you may think it's not actually there, making you put 0 potentially because you can't see the lamppost. So we changed the control description to be the southern part of the open land, and I think it's definitely really in the southern part of the open land, with north going this way. It's an example of where the control description can mean multiple things, and so we thought that made it a lot clearer that the answer to that one was going to be Delta. So well done if you got that. And then finally we finished off coming to the strip of open land, and we want the northeastern inside corner of that small strip, and coming across from the wall, you know that's going to be Foxtrot right there. So again, I thought there was another different station coming from station 3. Thought it was slightly easier than station 3 in parts, but there was 1 0 which could have been quite tricky to notice. And then with us being halfway through, I thought I'd throw in the station which was a bit different to try and get a bit of change of pace, as it's the one that just had a few fences with the field and the small patch of paved area, with Echo quite nicely there denoting the corner of the paved area. And this first 0 I thought was very clear if you were concentrating, because we have the one fence here which ends with a lamppost with Alpha on that corner. Come down the fence to Bravo and to Charlie just here with the lamppost there. You have the paved area with Delta, Echo and Foxtrot, and then this next fence running down to the circle, running out the photo to the right hand side. So this was a 0 being a long way to the right hand side. Quite a few did go with Bravo. I'm not surprised by that because that is also in the middle of a fence. But if you did look down here, you would have seen there is no paved area and not a second fence with Foxtrot, and so that one was a clear 0. Well done if you did manage to spot that. But then we came out to here, and we did change the station a small bit, changing tasks 52 to Charlie rather than Echo. I thought this really helped to anchor us a bit better on which fences it should have been, and so I thought Charlie was a lot clearer on that corner of the fence. It also helped you distinguish for the next few tasks where the corner of the fence was. And then we went out to Alpha. I did want to try and keep us going back and forth here, so we had one task in this area with Charlie, and then we went all the way out to Alpha, and then once you lost your concentration, we came back to the right hand side, and we want the northwestern outside corner of the fence. And quite a few did go with Delta, and I can kind of see why, because Delta's in that corner, and it could be on the northwestern outside corner of that junction, but that junction is on the edge of the circle there. The corner that we actually want is this one that's on the edge of the paved area, and is that one there. So that one is Foxtrot. We did originally have Delta as the answer, being on that junction, but I thought Foxtrot was a lot clearer as a task. And then finally we moved to the Bravo to finish off, and I think you really would have realised you were wrong for the first task by this point and were fine to put Bravo, as most of you did. So well done if you did manage to get that station right. It was a lot different to the previous 4 and different to the final 3, but I thought it was quite a nice station to try and throw you slightly, not too much because the tasks weren't too difficult in that station, but would have definitely made you think a bit more as it was different to the others. Moving on to station 6 then, and this is where I did have to add the red and white lines to help show mainly the Delta kite. I think the other 5 are clear, it was just showing Delta, but if you're going to have it for one flag in this station, I think you have to add it to all 6 to keep it fair. So all you had to do was add the red and white lines in Photoshop, and that's what they came out with. Also, by the way, if you don't have Photoshop, you can just use GIMP, as that is a free software you can use, and I know quite a lot of people use that instead. And for this first task, we wanted the northeastern corner of a building, and really the only kite on a building was Delta, so I was trying to make you put Delta by this point, but looking at it, we've got a lot of paved area to the right hand side, which there isn't over by Delta. You've got the bush that we had before in Station 3 and all the stairs, which is this area up here, so I wanted you to place Delta on this building instead, with this building being behind us and a clear 0. So I thought that was quite a nice task to start the station, and I also wanted to try and throw 2 zeros in the start of this station, as we were getting near the end, and I wanted to try and ramp up the difficulty a bit to try and separate the top few people. And if you thought Delta was the answer to the first task, you would have put 0, as we wanted it a long way back. But if you thought that the answer to the first task was a 0, I was hoping that some of you would put Bravo, as it's a similar parallel feature problem to the first task in Station 3, as this is the right angled fence and there is another right angled fence in the circle, but it's the wrong one. It's actually going to be at the top of these stairs. So that was 2 zeros to try and throw you for the start of the station, but the rest of it did get a bit easier as we came to the building which Delta is on, and here I wanted the first non-zero task to be the kite which you couldn't really see of Delta, just to make sure you can see it. I know the lines point it out quite nicely, but it would have helped some of you to spot it and realise that Delta is there. You can see that the original answer to this one was going to be Echo. Echo is on a tree stump, and I did map it as a tree stump, but the symbol was massive, and so I just thought I'd leave it, remove the symbol, and just not have that task. And I thought it was definitely nicer to have Delta on the building to point it out, as I do say. So yeah, that one was Delta, and then we moved to the corner of the fence for Alpha, right in front of the building. You can see the 2 fences coming in here, and Bravo is actually on this fence, and that seems to work really nicely. And then I was going to have this one as Foxtrot to finish off, going to the right hand side, but I thought a more interesting task here was going to be Charlie, as it was the middle fence. Although there are 4 in the circle, it was clear to me, especially with the zoom, that we are going to be centred on the one that Charlie's on, and the northern end is definitely where Charlie was. But this station was meant to be a bit harder than some of the previous ones, and especially coming out of Station 5, it was meant to throw you a bit more. So well done if you did manage to get that right. And you can see that for Station 7, we did change this one a lot. This one was a lot harder previously, and I do want to show you the old station, because in this old station, we originally had the first task be on the northern fence here, and if you look at the photo, Alpha is on the northern end of a fence, and we had for the first task here, but the fence for this 0 was this one behind the Foxtrot kite. However, I did think moving this one to be Alpha was a nicer opening task, and really here I just wanted a nice station to go between the hard 6 station and the hard 8 station, which we'll come to afterwards. So I thought Alpha was a nice fit here. But moving through the old station, we went from the 0 to Bravo in the bend in the wall, although it did become the rough open land, and I think that was a much better description to use, to this very hard 0 between 2 trees in the line. Now if you look at the photo, Foxtrot was the answer to the 4th task, between these 2 trees, and you can only see 1 tree in the photo, and the between 2 trees that was actually going to be this task as the 0 was going to be between the next 2 trees, and you can see neither of them in the photo, and so I didn't think this task was too hard for a B course, but Tom did advise me to take it out as it was more an A standard. And looking at the percentages afterwards, I can definitely agree that it was a good call, because this was the station with the lowest percentages, and it does show that you struggled a bit even with it having no zeros in. Probably because of this tree, you could potentially see all 3 in a line, being 1, 2, 3 in a line, and you might think Foxtrot's between the next 2, not noticing this other tree near the fence. So I'm glad I did take that one out. But the final 2 tasks here in the old station were going to be Charlie on the tree, and then we went to Echo between the 2 trees, not going back to Foxtrot at all. And as I keep saying, that was potentially a much harder station, but I am glad we changed it, because I did quite like this one as a no zero station, starting with the fence of Alpha and then moving to the rough open land of Bravo, to the tree of Charlie, between the 2 trees of Foxtrot, and then between the 2 trees of Echo. I think a few of you might have been doubting your answers to the first 3 going Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, especially with no zeros in the station as well, but that was the right answer, and I do think that was quite a nice station, bringing us into the final station, which does look like I changed every task, but you will see that I only actually changed the order of the tasks rather than what the tasks were, as I originally had this first task as the last task, but I thought this was quite a nice one to have as the first one, especially with the 0 in the second task, which we'll get to. But this is quite a nice anchor. There's clearly a hedge on the map. There's only one long hedge on the map, with the building to the left hand side and the 2 trees in front of us, and so that one was a clear Foxtrot, but that was meant to distract you for the second task on the corner of a building. And with Alpha and Bravo being on 2 corners of the buildings, I was hoping you'd say that Alpha is closer than Bravo, and so it's definitely going to be Alpha. However, looking, the building continues round, and the corner we want is the last corner on the eastern part of the building, which definitely puts us as a 0 rather than Alpha. But I'm not surprised quite a few did go with Alpha, as that was the distractor, and combined with the first task of Foxtrot, losing your concentration on it, that would have distracted you a bit. But then I wanted to move to the 2 trees with Delta and Echo, and you had to pick the right tree. So again, you were focusing on that rather than anything else, and you came to the conclusion of Echo, which most of you did, before going right to the back of the photo, to which the answer can only be Charlie here or 0, as it's on the shipping container, which we did say at the start is mapped as a building, and we want the northwestern corner, which is the corner away from us. As you can see, the centre of the circle is centred on it, and Charlie's on the corner closest to us. So if you were concentrating on this one too hard, you would have potentially just gone with Charlie straight away, but that was another good 0, I think, and especially in this last station, I thought it was quite nice to have a hard one there. And then finally we came to the point in which you were kicking yourself, potentially for getting the second task wrong, or you went with Bravo thinking that the second task was Alpha, but I think it should have been clear now that this one was Alpha on the middle of the 3 corners, rather than task 2 being Alpha on the most eastern of them. And that did actually bring us to the end of the event. Personally, the percentages here were very good, and so I did think you found this fairly easy. There were a couple of tasks which were slightly lower, and only one below 50%, I think, being 74 with the Foxtrot, but I think you did manage to cope with that very well. And I do have to say well done to Clive for winning the event by almost 50 seconds. And that does bring us to the end of the first round of the B category of TORUS Season 3. I hope that was a good explanation of how I made the event and the processes that I did to do it. I have found it a lot of fun, and I hope to be able to do it again in the future, as I have a couple of ideas of different areas that I want to use. But yeah, hopefully that might have inspired you to have a go at creating your own event in the future. But for now, that is going to be the end of today's video. Thank you again for watching. If you'd like to like the video, as always, and subscribe to the channel, making sure that you hit the bell next to the subscribe button and select all to ensure that you get notified whenever I release a video, and also be making sure to share these videos. Again, we hit 800 people yesterday, but I know we will get to 1,000 at some point, so let's try and do that by the end of this month by telling all your orienteering friends about the simulator and showing them these videos. And also be commenting down below any extra comments you have from this video, what you thought of the course. I am interested to hear your thoughts, being the first time I've ever planned an event, and I will see you in a couple of days time for the second round of the B category of TORUS Season 3.